You have been visiting several newspapers, and you have been meeting journalists of almost all daily newspapers in the country. And you are also aware that in this country, every almost daily newspaper belongs to a particular business group, which almost all cases belong to a particular political party. And it could be a strong weapon, tool for promoting their party, their businesses. How is it regulated or do we need to regulate it? What's the best way so that daily newspaper reflects the concerns of ordinary people?
Well, I think regulating media is a difficult area. I think you would find journalists and media owners in most countries saying, we don't want government involved in regulation. If there's any regulation to be done, it should be self-regulation by us. What I think would be likely, and I hope happens, is that as the media market matures, so the media owners will begin to realize that in fact there's more to be gained by a more balanced, diverse content in their papers than the sort of thing that is aimed at promoting their political or their business interests. Because I think people overestimate how much influence they actually have and underestimate the intelligence of readers. So the idea that if you keep shouting your message often enough and loudly enough, you will persuade people. I don't think that really works that way. I think people are much more aware of the fact that you're trying to persuade them of something. So I think as media owners begin to realize that, I think they'll probably start allowing more diversity, more balance in their papers. And that would be good for them commercially too. You can make money from your newspapers without turning them into mouthpieces.
So this is a normal process of early development of media.
I think so. I mean, I think if you go back, look at the media way back in Europe and the United Kingdom in particular, which I'm familiar with, America, most media started out as mouthpieces of political views, and then they realized, in fact, it would be better for the society as a whole to let the media sort of get on with providing information and allowing diverse debate.
You have been working for many years for the Financial Times.
That's right, 21 years.
21 years, which is one of the giants of the mainstream global media today. What is it like to work there, and how do you find the role of this sort of size, giant media in the world, the way we impacting on the way we live?
Well, it was wonderful working at the FT for 21 years. I left 4 years ago. There were all 21 years were wonderful. You do feel very much part of the debates in the world. Some people think of the Financial Times as being a British publication. It's not. It's based in London, but in fact, probably now between 2/3 and 3/4 of its circulation is outside of the UK. The mentality, the mindset of the journalists is very not British. Huge numbers of the journalists are from all over the world.
How many people do they work?
I guess there are about 200. I've never really looked at the official document saying how many people work there.
How many offices are around the world?
I think the FT prints in about 17 different print sites. Very big offices in Brussels, New York, Washington, Delhi, Tokyo, Hong Kong. Very large offices, and then smaller offices right across the world. Unfortunately, not here. Maybe.
When is it coming?
I think it'll come when the mines start producing.
And when the economy is of that scale that it impacts or directly, indirectly the world market in this or that way. Why? How you became a journalist?
To change the world. I didn't succeed, by the way.
Well, you were born in South Africa.
That's right.
And during the apartheid time, you have been writing. You were pro this big liberation movement. How was it? Please tell us.
Well, during apartheid, it was amazing how free the press actually was in many respects. There were all sorts of laws aimed at trying to control the press, but the apartheid regime, for its own reasons, always tried to use the courts rather than censorship or direct control of the media. Obviously, there were always limits, and some newspapers were actually banned. My first editor, who was Donald Woods, some of your viewers might be familiar with the film Cry Freedom, starring Denzel Washington and others, which tells the life of Donald and Stephen Biko, who was murdered by the apartheid regime. He was my first editor, and he, as those of you who have seen the film know, he was banned, not only banned as an editor, but banned from attending any gathering of more than 2 people.
Why?
Because he was outspoken, particularly because when the police killed Biko, there's no dispute about that. After the end of apartheid, they admitted that. He went on a campaign to try to prove that they had killed him, and brought enormous embarrassment.
What was that year?
1977.
77.
Yeah. So
Nelson Mandela is still in prison.
Mandela was in prison for another at least 13 years.
13 years,
yeah.
out of total.
Well, he spent 27 years in jail. But there was quite a lot of space we were able to utilize, and so the primarily English language media was quite critical of government and was able to report a lot of things, and so I felt it wasn't like being in Burma, for example, which has pre-publication censorship and you can't say anything. We were able to do a lot, not as much as we hoped and wanted to do, but quite a lot.
So the journalists in South Africa were, in a way, were the voices of white people or black people?
Well,
what is the role of journalism at that time?
At that time, the media was dominated by white people, but I would say that most of us were tended towards liberal. Some were sort of conservative liberals, others, including myself, further and further left, and the more difficult it was to remove that government, the further left we moved, the more we began to identify with the liberation movement itself, which was banned when Mandela was put in jail. And so I think many of us believed our role was to give a voice to the voiceless.